This is Larissa Lam, and with me is...
Only one.
A.K.A.
Baldwin Chiu.
You don't like saying your real name, do you?
Yeah, that's okay. I guess it's okay for people to know who I really am. I gotta be real.
Come on, Clark Kent.
Yeah, I got my glasses on right now.
You can't always be Superman.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are hosting this brand new podcast called Love, Discovery, and Dim Sum. Some of you may know us.
And then some.
And then some. Which is actually the catchphrase for a restaurant I once saw. For those of you who don't know, we are married in real life. You may know us from our music and or our film, Finding Cleveland. And we have decided to join forces for this podcast to discuss everything from love. It could be relationship stuff. Mm-hmm. It could be about how we can love this world a little bit better, since there's a lot of hate in this world.
We could use a little bit of love.
We can use love. It's about discovery. We want to be able to enlighten our audience and maybe shine a light on stories you may not normally hear in the news, or give you some background on some stuff that you may not be aware of as we kind of discover stuff in life. Mm-hmm. And of course, your favorite food, dim sum.
Yes, and dim sum just encompasses anything that is love.
Love is dim sum. Dim sum is love. And the dim sum is kind of sharing maybe some of our culture or perspective from time to time.
Do we need to tell people what dim sum is? Do we have listeners out there that don't know what dim sum is?
They may not know what dim sum is, because that's kind of what we want to do, is we want to make sure that we're reaching a wide audience. So this is not for just an Asian audience.
No.
So, don't feel like you have to be part of the secret club to listen to this podcast.
But dim sum is the best food in the world because you can have so much of so little. Oh, that's weird. So much of so little.
Is that a catchphrase? Is that something? If you open your 24-hour dim sum restaurant, like that's going to be your
so
name?
much of so little.
Yeah. Yes. And for those of you who've ever had like Spanish tapas, it's basically like Chinese tapas. And the authentic places will push around a cart and they'll have all the dishes on there. So you don't even need to look at a menu. You just look at something and you go, what's that? I want that. That looks good. Or no, I don't want that because that looks weird and scary. The
good thing is that they're in small little plates. So if you don't like it, hey, you didn't just order a whole bunch of it. You just had like a little sampling of it.
That's right. And it's better if you have more people to go, because then you can sample different things.
A whole lot of whole little.
Yeah, they're sweet, they're savory. Anyways, if you haven't checked out dim sum, go to a dim sum restaurant sometime.
Go discover it with love.
Yeah, or you can check out Only One's music video, Dim Sum. He eats dim sum in there and fights off some bad guys.
Who's trying to take my dim sum.
Yeah. Anyways, hilarity ensues. But we're here to talk about a lot of other different things. And for our first official podcast, so welcome to the club, everybody. Yay!
I made it to the first podcast.
The first podcast. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be kind of like a Crazy Rich Asians guide for non-Asians. A little bit.
And even for Asians.
And for Asians.
Because I met some Asian folks that don't know what's going on with Crazy Rich Asians.
Absolutely. If you haven't heard about the movie and been living on a rock, or just don't have internet, then I'm not sure how you're listening to this podcast right now. But that's beside the point.
Somebody recorded on tape.
Crazy Rich Asians was a #1 hit at the box office.
Week number one.
It's been sweeping the nation, and I know a lot of friends who saw me post about it. We went opening day. Mm-hmm. We had a little date.
We went opening hour.
It's not a date night; it was a date morning. Opening hour, the very first showing. Don't be scared if you don't like subtitles. Okay, there's just a little bit of there's a couple of characters that speak in Chinese at moments, but don't worry, that's subtitled in English. But everything else is in English, because that's a cool thing about this movie, is that it's pretty much an all like English-speaking class.
I was going to say...
or cast, I should say, not class.
I was going to say, better watch out, because everyone's got an accent in this Asian movie.
A British one, and an Australian one.
Exactly.
A Singaporean one.
And an
Malaysian,
American one.
Yeah, and an American one. And I think what people don't realize, too, like, the movie is predominantly set in Singapore, and I have to raise my hand and kind of play ignorant American. The first time I went to Singapore, I didn't know that English was their official language. Like, everybody speaks English because they used to be a British colony.
Oh, it's not Singaporean?
No, it's not Singaporean. But there are, like... Okay, so Singapore Singaporeanese or like if you want to get all Singaporean, just add la to everything.
You think I'm joking? There are people that think that Singapore's national language is Singaporean.
Well, I know. Like, I was an ignorant American.
Singaporeanese.
I thought there was like some type of other local language besides, English. And there's a lot of people of Chinese descent, and so some people speak Chinese as well. There's also a lot of South Indians, so they speak different dialects in the in the country, and other groups, Filipinos, etc. So it's a very diverse, country, which is also a city. It's Singapore is both a city and a country. Did you know that?
I actually did not know that.
So it's
what's the capital of Singapore?
It's Singapore.
And it's the capital.
It's Singapore.
Wow. I learned something new just now.
So we're here to help you, if you're not even Asian, to get through, or even if you're Asian and not Chinese or Singaporean, to get through some of these things in Crazy Rich Asians. Now, one of the things is, a lot of people have said, well, this is not my story as an Asian. And Baldwin, you actually have a fascinating back history with your family. Mm-hmm. How did you feel watching the film? Because your family, this is not meant to be derogatory, but they were not Crazy Rich Asians, right?
No, we were just crazy. No, we weren't crazy. We weren't crazy and we weren't rich. We were just Asian.
Yes, but your family.
But we were American.
You were American.
Yes.
Your family had very humble beginnings. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, we just actually discovered this year and a half ago that my great-grandfather was actually born in the United States of America.
In 1877.
1877.
That's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have a long history in this country. I'm assuming that people are listening in America right now. But if you're listening from outside of America, when I say this country, I'm talking about United States.
United States.
Of America.
That's right.
Yeah.
And because, 4 years ago, we took a trip out to Cleveland, Mississippi to visit your great-grandfather's gravesite.
That's right. Mississippi of all places.
And we ended up uncovering this fascinating history that we don't get taught in schools about how the Chinese had been there for generations and in thousands, population in the Mississippi Delta, opening grocery stores.
Yeah, but before that, what were they doing?
They were working on the plantations. They replaced the slave labor.
Right, picking cotton side by side with the black community. That's pretty amazing.
It is, and yet we don't know about that. And so that's a different side of the story where they were being subject to segregated laws. All the Jim Crow laws also applied to them.
And even when they left the plantations, where did they end up going? Back with the black community, right?
Yeah, they opened grocery stores in the black community, and they weren't even allowed to live in a lot of the white neighborhoods. And so, there was this massive history of discrimination, and even as humble immigrants coming into this country with not a whole lot of money because they're here to work, to send money back home to China because they were going through some different difficulties financially in the south part of China, which is where your family's from. So they weren't exactly Crazy Rich Asians.
No. They were working towards it, though. They were a few generations behind.
Yeah.
In fact, our generation is still a little behind.
Oh, yeah. We're still a few generations away from your family for being crazy rich.
Yeah.
But
it only takes a generation to make it.
That's right. So we know there's hopefully a lot of other stories that get told as a result of the success of this film. We're working on a documentary that's a sequel to our short, Finding Cleveland, which was about that first trip to Cleveland, Mississippi, where we're talking about your family's immigrant experience. And it's obviously a very stark contrast to what goes on in Crazy Rich Asians.
So we are rich in other things. We are rich in historic content.
That's right.
We're crazy rich historians. Rich in history.
Yes, doing documentaries about history is going to be the big blockbuster film.
That's right. I have no doubt.
Now, you've gotten a lot of comments. I have gotten comments on Facebook too, but you especially have gotten a lot of comments on Facebook and social media, especially from your non-Asian friends about Crazy Rich Asians. Tell us about that.
I had somebody say to me, actually this one was live in person, not even social media. Yes, I do talk to people in real life. It's not just over.
You're not buried in your phone every single day?
I am not. I actually talk to real human beings. And this human being, I will not say what gender or ethnicity, I'll just say not Asian, said to me, is it okay for me to watch Crazy Rich Asians? Actually, is it even okay for me to say that? Because that's kind of racist, isn't it?
Oh, because they thought you were saying Crazy Rich Asians as opposed to Crazy Rich Asians. She was thinking, oh, I'm sorry, did I say gender? He or she.
He or she.
thought
whatever they say now.
They could be they.
It could be multiple, yeah, it could be multiple people.
They thought that you thought they were saying like Asians were crazy.
Yeah, maybe they thought the crazy was talking about how rich Asians are and
being
on
crazy.
A psychological level.
Right. And as opposed to, like, if you've seen the film, and here's a little spoiler alert, Awkwafina's character, like, says, like, they're not rich, they're crazy rich, meaning, like, they're really, really super rich,
They're
like
mega
rich.
Uber rich.
Right. Not that they're
like
crazy in the head.
Insane in the membrane.
Exactly.
Insane in the brain. Got no brain.
It's a crazy, yeah.
They're cray-cray, right?
Yeah, like, this is dope, but it's not,
Yeah.
it's not
It's not
drugs.
the drugs.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, maybe that was a misunderstanding.
Right.
So I think this person told me they were going to go watch it
Okay, good.
with their significant other.
Because you mentioned that,
No,
it's okay. You have permission,
Yes.
person who is not Asian, to go see Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes, and
Just
it's
in the
not racist to go see it.
Yes, just in the same way, after I saw the movie, I was thinking My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which is an older movie. But, like, I'm not Greek, but I love that movie. And the people that were
And you're
not
not fat.
Greek, and I'm not fat. I was at one point. I lost 40 pounds. Thanks very much.
Fat.
I wasn't big, fat, or Greek. And so at the time...
So you can't watch that movie because it's racist of you.
I know, and I wasn't dating. I didn't meet you yet, so I wasn't even dating.
You weren't even going to a wedding.
I wasn't going to a wedding. I sang at a lot of weddings. Like, then the only movie I could have watched was Wedding Singer with Adam Sandler. So that's not true. So many friends of mine told me, like, Larissa, we just want you to go up to the mic and go sing, "Do you really want to hurt me?" If you haven't seen the movie, then you won't know what that meant. Anyways, back to Crazy Rich Asians. So, and you had some other encounters with some people that were Asian or not Asian that had some interesting comments, right?
Oh, someone actually said, my husband is white. Can he see it? I'm like, wait. Yeah.
So she was Asian.
Yes.
And she just thought, oh, this movie's for me.
Yeah.
My white husband is not going to be able to see this movie because,
right.
You know, again, why is it that with just like an Asian movie or an Asian cast, people think like, oh, it's only for Asians? I have a friend who.
That's why I didn't watch Black Panther, because I'm not black. I'm just kidding.
We
I watched
it. We loved it. You know, absolutely. Like, you know, what, you know, somebody who watches, you know, Goodfellas, like, you're not Italian.
Yeah.
Again, back to the mob example. Like, you're not in the mob, so you can't go see Goodfellas, right?
I didn't watch Selena either.
Selena,
yeah,
with Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, because I'm not Latino.
You're Latino.
No, I'm just
but you
kidding.
did.
I
You
did
saw
watch
the movie.
it. Yes.
Right. Or are we talking about Stand and Deliver? Like,
Yes.
fantastic movie.
Or 90% of the movies out there that
exactly,
are all white.
that are all white.
I have not watched any of those 90% of those movies because
I don't go
not white.
see. Yeah, you don't go see, you know, Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt or you know, Chris Pratt because they're all white,
because
right?
they're all white. No,
Because
of course I watched them.
I know. So this notion
So it's
we really
weird.
have to like kind of dispel.
But you know what? I gotta be honest. I'm glad they're at least being honest with these questions.
Right.
It's like, as weird or stupid or whatever you want to say these questions are, at least the questions are honest, which is not bad because at least it's opening up conversations to like, and it kind of reveals why do you think it could be racist or why do you think you may not be able to enjoy it, right?
Right.
At least it opens up some sort
It's
of
our
conversation.
subconscious biases or how we've been taught as a culture to only view things like, okay, if it's white, that means it's for everyone. I mean, I know the black community struggled like with this for a long time up until, you know, Get Out and like Black Panther, right? Like, you didn't have to be black to watch Get Out or Black Panther.
Nope.
You know, or even like Straight Outta Compton. Like, you didn't need to be black to watch those movies, but there was this myth that, oh, if you watched Boys in the Hood, you could only be like black and enjoy that movie, which I watched, which was fantastic, or any Spike Lee movie. But you know, a lot of white people like Denzel Washington and Will Smith. So
that's right. But props to all my non-Asian friends out there that stood by me on social media and said like, "What? I'm not Asian and I love the movie. Thank you for saying that."
Yes. And, you know, I was talking about Singapore, and, you know, there's obviously this side of, like, rich Singapore that people are like, is that real? Like, do people really live like that? And the time that I spent out there, like, I was doing concerts, and I was going into schools, and so, you know, kids are in uniform, so you don't really notice if they're rich, or not. So like for me, I didn't sense.
That's a good reason for uniforms.
Uniforms.
That's a
yeah,
very
it's
good
cool
reason.
for uniforms. I didn't sense that as much. However, there are some parallels, and some of the characters in Crazy Rich Asians are from, we're living in Hong Kong. One of the cousins was living in Hong Kong, and so I do see those parallels, and I'm sure they exist in Singapore but I just, when I went over there, I didn't happen to run with the snobby crowd. But while I'm in Hong Kong, I actually have a cousin who will remain nameless. I love her. She's great. She and her husband are awesome. But they are kind of like the socialites, like the Crazy Rich Asians in Hong Kong. And they hang with those kind of people. So like at my cousin's wedding, which I sang at, like there was paparazzi outside her wedding. And she's in a lot of those gossip rags. In the same way, a good comparison is like the Kardashians or like Paris Hilton, here. So there's that crowd. But, I mean, Paris Hilton and the Kardashians don't represent all Americans, right?
No.
So in the same way that social elite in Hong Kong or Singapore or any other country, like, that doesn't represent, like, the whole population. I mean, everybody's different. You've got to, there's people that are just working class that are there. They're working for the rich. I mean, I will definitely say here in the U.S., we have many more different shades of gray in terms of classes than, say, in certain parts of Asia, where it's either you're really rich or you work for the rich. So that's one thing that is, maybe people don't realize. But yeah, not everybody is crazy rich in Singapore or in Asia, and not every Asian in the U.S. is crazy rich either, as we demonstrated with talking about your family.
Yeah, most of us are pretty normal, like right down the middle,
Yeah, we're all cool people. So if you're not Asian, it's totally cool for you to talk to us and to watch Crazy Rich Asians.
Did you get any weird comments?
I didn't get as many weird comments. I think the more things is I think I saw more interesting comments, not from non-Asians, but from Asians. Where there was some person where it's like, this wasn't my story, like again,
Yeah.
or like, why weren't there more South Indians and Cambodians and Southeast Asians in it? And this is like, I mean, think about like Infinity War. You like try to cram as many like characters in there as possible, but you're missing a whole lot of other characters and different alien races and
the
like
Asian
you can't
American
like
character. Sorry, that's another side note.
There was an Asian British one.
Yeah, but
Wong.
not Asian American.
Right, and then you've got Mantis, the actress is French, Asian French.
Yeah, so
and she's an alien.
Yeah,
but anyways, you can't possibly. It's like even saying like American Pie, which is the name of the film, like is like, oh, that's like encompassing the whole American experience, which it's not. It's about. So I mean, I think to say that one movie should include everybody is a little bit of a stretch. I mean, I get it. There are other ethnic groups in Singapore, and they're going to do a sequel, so hopefully
I guess
they'll
we'll
show
watch
more.
the sequel. Yeah,
maybe they'll have more of those, because again, I met a lot of different people, but this happened to just be focused on these families and specifically Chinese culture. The one thing that I think I had to explain to somebody a lot about was the distinction between being American and being from Asia, which again, like, the film nailed. And I big props to John Chiu and Kevin Kwan for really kind of putting that theme front and center, because it's nothing that's ever really been talked about as much in a major film, where
I always felt like I was the only one that felt that weirdness of like being Asian and American, and so to finally see it on a big screen capture how I felt my entire life, that was pretty amazing.
I mean, around the world, like, a lot of people kind of look down on us Americans, regardless of our ethnic group, and it doesn't even matter who's in political power. But a lot of times, those Americans are like, the ugly American is kind of a stereotype. And, I think in Crazy Rich Asians, the lead character, Rachel Chu, I mean, she, again, the little spoiler alert, like at one point, one of the characters says to her, it's like, well, you'll always be American and you'll never be, enough, and something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And it's like, and it was done as an insult, like you put down, like,
it was worse to be an American than to be
You're inferior to us in Asia because you're American.
Yeah.
And I know, like, in my experience going back to Asia, obviously if I'm doing a concert, they're like, oh yay, it's so great that you're here. But on a cultural level, when I've gone over to mainland China or Hong Kong or Singapore, like I am not fully Asian to them. And especially, I mean, I speak Cantonese, I speak some Mandarin, but I don't read or write, and I'm not super fluent. And so they kind of look down upon me because I was born here, as opposed to, like, I'm, like, full-bred, even though blood-wise, to my knowledge, I'm full Chinese, but, like, I'm not fully Asian.
But do we look down on them when they come over here because they can't speak English as well as we do?
Well, I don't.
No.
But maybe some other people do.
Maybe.
But then there's that's the flip side of it, is here in America, we aren't fully American in a lot of people's eyes.
That's true.
You know, where they're like, well, you're not, can you make that more Asian? Like, my favorite thing is when I've done, like, music or you know, for film and television, that they'll say, like, oh, hey, you know, this is for an Asian, like a scene in an Asian scene, like we're running through Chinatown or there's like 2 Asian characters. Can you make it more Asian?
Can you run a little more Asian?
Can you run a little bit more Asian? Or going to auditions, can you do that with an accent?
Yeah,
like, if you're not Asian and you're not speaking with an accent, then you're not Asian enough.
It's like, oh, you mean like a British accent?
Yes, it's like,
I
hi,
can do
y'all,
it.
I'm going to talk like I'm from Mississippi.
I got a Mississippi
Because you're
accent,
from Mississippi, y'all.
I got a Southern accent, y'all.
Yeah, that was a terrible Mississippi accent.
That
for me.
was. Sorry, Mississippians.
Yeah, I can do a better one. I just need a little bit of time. But, you know, there's that perception, like, we're considered foreigners. I mean, you were in an airport recently, weren't you? And, like, the person came up to you thinking you were a tourist.
Yeah, actually, I think they weren't even talking to me. They were talking to their coworker. And then all of a sudden, like, I think they wanted my business. And so she told her coworker, man, I really wish I spoke Chinese. And then I looked at her and I was like, yeah, me too.
That's hilarious. But, you know, these are the little things I think the movie really nailed, that somebody who's maybe not Asian thinks, like, oh, this is a great love story, it's a great rom-com, and it is, and it's funny, and oh yeah, there's some great characters, I loved a lot of the actors. But for us who may have struggled with identity issues in living in 2 cultures, and I don't even think it has to be Asian, it could be, you know, you could be Latino, you could be, you know, from Africa and not even African American, I mean, and kind of resonate with those because you're kind of a stranger in your own land, in a sense. You know, I think the other thing, you know, that I kind of just wanted to touch upon in the film was, like, there's the mahjong scene at the end of the film. Again, spoiler alert. Mahjong, for you who don't know what mahjong is kind of like the Chinese gin rummy. Very similar. If you don't know what gin rummy is, then you need to Google that.
It's an alcoholic beverage. No, it's not.
I think it's just named after. It's so funny because your brother, you know, messaging us. It's like, do you guys know how to play, you know, mahjong? Because now he wants to learn after watching the movie. And, you know, for those of us who know, like, mahjong is actually gambling. I mean, it's like poker, right? You play. And I remember my grandpa taught me mahjong when I was a kid. My mom got so mad because she's like, you never let us near the mahjong table when we were kids, and then you teaching the grandkids. You know, grandparents let grandkids do anything. So anyways, this mahjong scene was kind of pivotal because it was this plot point where if you didn't know the game, you're not sure if, like, she wins or loses, you know. And so...
Plus, she's an American playing.
She's an American playing mahjong. So I won't give away the exact ending, but the fact that this, like, game that is very specific to us culturally was in there was kind of cool, and it had, like, a deeper, significant meaning. And you just sub it for, like, again, a poker game. Like, how many films have you seen that's got, like, this poker showdown, or, you know, you're at the casino and it's like this massive showdown of blackjack or whatever. So that was kind of like our version of it. You know, all I know is I'm really glad the movie did well. Are you
I think it's going to do well this week too.
I think it's going to do well in weeks to come. And so if you're not Asian, please go see the film. But also there's other films that are coming out, like John Cho's Searchin', which has nothing to do with Crazy Rich Asians, just like a thriller, and he's a dad.
But it normalizes that we are just regular people too.
We're regular people. Like, we don't have to be the Chinese restaurant owner.
Yeah.
We don't have to be the Asian prostitute.
Or the martial artist.
The martial artist or the gangster.
That loses to the non-Asian person who's a better martial artist.
The gangster that dies 2 minutes into the scene.
Yeah.
So this is why it's important to have all sorts of diverse stories and representation, and why we felt so passionate about that. And again, this podcast isn't going to be completely Asian-centric all the time, but we will bring in some of our kind of Asian American perspective from time to time.
Which is really just an American perspective.
It's just an American perspective because you are 5 generations deep.
Yes.
Well, with our daughter, it's 6
That's right.
generations. But we hope you've enjoyed this first episode. Feel free to check us out on social media. Only One. What's your social media handles?
At Only One, ONLYWON.
That's right.
That's right. It's not the number one. It's
Not the number
WON.
one. And mine is at Larissa Lam on Twitter and at Larissa Lam Music on Instagram and at Larissa Lam on Facebook. I know you're thinking, why didn't you just get at Larissa Lam on Instagram? Because there was another Larissa Lam that took it already.
I know. I'm like at Only One MC
On Instagram.
On Instagram.
So hopefully this will be the first of many, many podcasts. And thank you for tuning in to Love Discovery and Dim Sum.
Peace.
You can follow us at LDD Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I like to eat dim sum. I like to eat it every day.
Yeah.
You can use a fork if you can't use chopsticks to eat dim sum. There's no wrong way. I like to eat dim sum. I like to eat it every day. If you can't use chopsticks to eat dim sum, there's no wrong